During an evacuation protocol, a convoy that is transporting the residents of a town that has been affected by a pathogen is stopped in the middle of the journey. After hearing some explosions, the soldier responsible for escorting the survivors to the isolation site gets out of the bus and orders the driver to keep the doors closed so that no one else can get in or out of the vehicle. However, when he realizes that he has lost contact with his work colleague, the second soldier who is escorting the survivors decides to go after him, but ends up being attacked as he gets off the bus. In an attempt to stop the monster that attacked the policeman from invading the vehicle, Jack and Patrick team up to push him out, but then decide to leave in order to get the soldiers' weapons to defend themselves. While trying to get the gun, Jack is attacked by the soldier himself, who has been infected by the pathogen and turned into a zombie. Luckily, the man manages to draw his gun and shoot before being infected, but he soon realizes that there are several other predators on the loose and hides under the bus. Seeing the monsters trying to invade the bus, Patrick struggles to keep the door closed while the other passengers look for an alternative exit. When he realizes that he won't be able to keep the door shut for long, the man rushes to break the glass in the windows and make way for his wife to escape with their daughter. While her colleagues are being devoured, Emma manages to escape with her baby and hides with her daughter in an abandoned car. Suddenly, a zombie appears at the window and grabs Emma from behind. As the woman tries to push the creature away, another monster is attracted by her screams and breaks the windshield to try and reach her. Luckily, just then, Jack appears and shoots the zombies to save her. After picking up the baby, he notices that she's covered in blood, but soon realizes that it's Emma who's really hurt. While trying to protect her daughter, the woman ended up being bitten and was therefore condemned to become one of those monsters. 9 years later, during the winter, Patrick goes out in search of food and finds a horse lost in the city. After eliminating the animal, the man takes its meat back to the shelter and prepares his dinner. Since his wife was infected, Jack has decided to isolate himself from the rest of the world to look after his daughter, and since then, he and the girl have never had contact with human civilization. The next morning, Patrick wakes up to the barking of his dog and opens the door so that he can take a walk around the neighborhood. During the walk, Doug meets Lou and the girl shares her cookies with him. However, when he hears his master's whistle, the dog runs to meet him and Lou returns home. Despite not being able to attend school, the girl learns many lessons from her father. After math class, Jack decides to go out shooting and takes the opportunity to spend more time with his daughter. In the evening, he gives Lou a birthday present, and when she opens the box, she finds some of her mother's old belongings. That night, while talking to her father, Lou asks about the monsters that destroyed humanity and her father says that they all froze. While Jack takes advantage of his solitude to focus all his efforts and energy on raising his daughter, Patrick continually tries to establish contact with other survivors, but has never succeeded in this mission. One day, during the night, Lou wakes up to a frightening noise coming from outside and gets up to look out of the window. As she opens the curtains, she spots a zombie outside the fence, but the creature runs away when it hears Doug's barking. Terrified, Lou moves away from the window and hides in a corner next to the cupboard while she tries to understand what has just happened. For her, those monsters were just terrifying stories, but now she's sure they're real. In the morning, Jack finds his daughter hiding under the bed and joins her in trying to understand what has happened. However, on hearing the description of the monster, the man comes to the conclusion that it was all just a figment of Lou's imagination and claims that she just had a bad dream. When she realizes that her father doesn't believe her story, the girl decides to stop trying to convince him and leaves her stuffed bunny to keep watch through the hole in the fence that protects her house. At this point, she meets Doug's owner and is startled to see a man other than her father, as Lou has never met anyone else before. Realizing that Patrick is trying to communicate with his daughter, Jack immediately runs towards him and orders the man to stay well away from the house. Realizing that Jack is armed, Patrick decides to just leave with his dog and breaks into a warehouse in search of food. After getting all the supplies he needs, Patrick prepares to leave, but realizes that something has attracted Doug's attention. As he approaches the dog, the man sees the remains of the fox that was in the warehouse when they arrived, and the trail of blood leads him to a zombie that was hiding out feeding on the animal. On spotting it, Patrick tries to flee with his dog, and when they manage to get out of the warehouse, he closes the door to block the creature's exit. The man then climbs into his vehicle and drives off with Doug, but during their escape they have an accident and fall into the snow. For a few seconds, Patrick loses consciousness, and when he wakes up, he realizes that the monster he was running from has caught up with him. At that moment, the man realizes that the creature is blind, so he decides to stay still in an attempt to lose it. Suddenly, the monster hears the sound of gunfire and is attracted by the noise. That afternoon, Jack decides to give his daughter some target practice and opens the gates to hunt a rabbit a few meters away. Just as the man is about to secure his dinner, Patrick approaches with a gun in his hand, firing into the sky in an attempt to alert Jack to the monster heading his way. In doing so, Patrick attracts the attention of the creature, which jumps on his sled and knocks him down. When he sees the vehicle heading in his direction, Jack ducks down with his daughter, then orders her to hide behind the gates. At that moment, Patrick reaches for his gun, but the creature catches him before he has a chance to do so. Seeing that man about to be devoured, Jack prepares to shoot, but gives up pulling the trigger and just waits while he watches Patrick get bitten. Just then, Doug appears to defend his master and attacks the monster. However, during the battle, the dog also takes a bite and ends up being eliminated. Although seriously wounded, Patrick manages to get his gun and shoot the zombie, which runs away after being hit by the shot. Seeing his neighbor infected, Jack walks away and returns home to check that his daughter is all right. However, when her father approaches, Lou starts crying and pushes him away, because she knows he let Patrick get bitten on purpose. Seeing his dog in his last moments, Patrick is heartbroken, as Doug has been his only companion for the last few years. Knowing that there is no way to save the animal's life, the man decides to keep him company until his last breath and mourns the loss of his loyal friend. After burying Doug's body, Patrick returns home determined to put an end to everything before he turns into one of those monsters. Just then, as he tries to gather his courage, he remembers the day Emma was bitten, so he had to remove her arm before the infection spread. Before pulling the trigger, Patrick passes out and wakes up to the sound of the radio. Realizing that there is someone on the other end trying to make contact, the man walks over to the microphone and answers the call. After reporting his location, Patrick says that the zombies are back and that he was bitten by one of them. On hearing this, Jeremy asks when the attack happened and Patrick reveals that he was infected that morning. Jeremy then says that it's been a long time since the attack, and claims that if he really was infected, he should have turned by now. The next morning, while screwing in some wooden boards to block the windows, Jack sees his neighbor outside and is surprised to discover that he hasn't turned. That day, when he goes out to look for food, Jack breaks into a house that has been taken over by snow and finds the frozen bodies of the former residents on the sofa. While trying to ignore the frightening scene, he searches for supplies and finds a bunch of plastic flowers. When he gets home, he gives the fake flowers to his daughter in an attempt to make peace with her, and Lou takes them to the altar made in honor of her mother. At this point, the girl decides to take some of those flowers to Doug's grave, and after grabbing a gun to defend herself if necessary, she crosses the fence. However, it isn't long before Jack realizes that his daughter has left the house and immediately goes after her. While the young woman is absent-mindedly throwing flowers on the other side of the fence where the dog's grave is, the zombie appears and approaches her from behind. Seeing it, Lou grabs her gun and prepares to shoot, but is struck by the monster, which manages to knock her down. When he realizes that his daughter is in danger, Jack rushes to open the gate and attacks the creature. Furious, the man strikes his enemy and punches him several times in the face. However, even during the attack, the zombie manages to fight back and uses its claws to slice open Jack's stomach. Determined to protect his daughter, he continues his attack until he blackouts the zombie, then crawls towards Lou, who is unconscious. At that moment, Jack sees Patrick on the other side of the fence pointing a gun in his direction and is terrified, but instead of hitting him, his neighbor shoots the monster that has just risen. Hours later, during the night, Jack wakes up in Patrick's house and immediately gets up to look for his daughter. As he walks through the yard, he is surprised by the zombie that attacked him and realizes that it is on a leash. Despite having had its arms removed, the zombie remains alive and with its instincts intact. Just then, Patrick appears with a baseball bat and strikes the creature. The man reveals that after having its arms removed, the monster sealed the wounds in a few minutes, thus preventing blood loss. By observing the physical characteristics of these creatures, Patrick has come to the conclusion that over the last decade, they have evolved to resist the cold and become even more efficient predators. The good news is that the pathogen that turned people into monsters no longer exists, so they don't need to worry about infection. What's more, that creature is completely blind, so the only way it can locate its prey is by sound. Just then, Lou appears and Jack is relieved to see his daughter alive and healthy. He quickly gets up and runs to hug her. He then takes her back home. Minutes later, Patrick hears Lou's voice on the radio and is surprised. Still suspicious, the man answers the call and his neighbor invites him over for dinner the next day. Excited to have dinner with other people after so long, Patrick decides to take a good shower and shave in order to make a good impression. When he answers the door, Jack can't hide the strangeness he feels at receiving this man in his home, but he tries to be pleasant as a way of thanking him for saving his life. Soon after, Lou comes downstairs and is startled to see her neighbor with his hair cut and his beard done. Nevertheless, the girl runs to hug him and is overjoyed when Patrick gives her a doll as a present. During dinner, a conversation that started off unpleasantly becomes relaxed and everyone manages to have a good time. After the meal, Patrick tells Lou some old movie stories and the girl ends up falling asleep on his lap. With Jack's help, he lays the girl down on the sofa and they both take advantage of Lou's sleep to talk about their past. At this point, Jack decides to put aside the disagreements he had with Patrick for the sake of his daughter and asks his neighbor to help him protect her in the best way possible. During the conversation, Patrick reveals that he knows the whereabouts of a truck that can be used to get them out of town before other monsters find them. However, Jack is determined to stay in the house, as he believes that he and his daughter are safe there. When he realizes that Patrick hasn't left yet because he wanted to stay close to Lou, Jack feels uncomfortable and says that dinner was a bad idea. After handing over his neighbor's coat, the man orders him to leave and sits down next to Lou. At that moment, Jack remembers when the girl was just a baby and under the care of Patrick, her biological father. After Emma perished, Patrick started drinking and became a totally irresponsible person, neglecting even his own daughter. Concerned for the girl's health and safety, Jack decided to assume paternity of her and has since raised her as his own. The next morning, Patrick starts cleaning the windows of his truck to set off on a trip, and to his surprise, Jack and Lou decide to accompany him. Realizing that he won't be able to protect the girl on his own if other zombies appear, Jack makes the difficult decision to leave his home for the unknown. Before setting off, the trio stops at the warehouse to pick up some supplies, and as they are leaving, Lou comes across a woman. When he sees her, Patrick approaches her cautiously to try to find out if she's all right, but suddenly the woman starts screaming. Terrified, Patrick tries to calm her down and holds her until she stops struggling. When she manages to calm down, Jack decides to take Clara home to help her recover. While Patrick is lighting the fire, Lou approaches him and asks if he has met her mother, as the girl has seen several photos of Emma in his room. It doesn't take long before the girl realizes that this is the origin of the quarrel between Patrick and her father and asks how her neighbor felt when Emma chose to stay with Jack. At that moment, Patrick's eyes water and he feels the urge to tell Lou that he is her real father. However, with the intention of sparing the girl such confusion and suffering, Patrick decides to keep this truth hidden and just changes the subject. Minutes later, Jack goes to talk to his neighbor and reveals that Clara has woken up. According to her, her group was attacked by a horde of zombies and the memories of what happened afterwards still terrify her. When she regains her sanity, Clara tells that since the news of the new pathogen spread, she has lived in a house with her parents and siblings for more than a year. After this period, they finally decided to leave and head north, where they met some groups of survivors. In one of these groups, the young woman met a guy she fell in love with and ended up getting pregnant with, but he lost his life before she had the chance to know he was going to be a father. About 3 weeks ago, she and her boyfriend joined another small group of travelers and formed a convoy of 3 cars. Together, they made their way to that town, having heard a transmission made by Patrick, and decided to check if there were any other survivors there. Along the way, the convoy was attacked and Clara was the only one who managed to escape. After hearing the woman's sad story, Lou approaches her and asks about the baby in her belly. While they are talking, Clara hears the scream of the monster that is trapped in the yard and is terrified, but Patrick tells her that it is harmless. Upon hearing this, the young woman comes to the conclusion that those people have no idea what they're dealing with, so she grabs the gun that's on the table and eliminates the zombie once and for all. According to Clara, the noise the creature was making is used to attract others of its kind, and Patrick realizes that the city is now full of creatures. Terrified, the man enters the house and asks Jack to help him block all the entrances in an attempt to stop the monsters from invading. The adults then begin to prepare for war and reload their weapons to defend themselves in case any zombies manage to get in. Minutes later, the group sees a monster approaching and everyone remains silent so as not to reveal its position. In an attempt to find out if anyone is inside the house, the creature climbs onto the roof and Jack orders Lou to stay hidden in the basement while he and the other adults go after the zombie. Frightened, the girl begins to walk through the dark place and tries to keep quiet so as not to attract the attention of any predators. However, when she looks back, she comes across a zombie and remains motionless in the hope that it won't notice her. Looking out of the window, Clara sees a monster outside and shoots it to eliminate it. When it hears the noise, the creature that managed to break into the house appears and starts chasing Jack, who hides inside one of the bedrooms and holds the door so that his enemy can't get in. Suddenly, another zombie appears at the window and Jack reaches for his gun to take it out. However, after firing the first shot, he realizes he's out of ammunition and grabs a shard of glass to defend himself. With Patrick's help, Clara moves a wooden shelf in front of the door and blocks the zombie's passage. Meanwhile, Lou continues to try and hide from the monster that is trapped inside the basement with her and moves slowly so as not to make a sound. Seeing an open trunk, the girl thinks of a plan to trap the creature inside and the toy she got from Patrick as bait to lure it out. Just then, Patrick hears the noise of the monsters coming from inside the basement and opens the door to get Lou out. However, as soon as the door opens, the man is attacked and starts a physical fight against the creature. Seeing her ally in trouble, Clara turns on loud music to confuse the monsters, and as soon as it gets away from Patrick, the woman uses a tool to drive nails into the zombie's head. When he discovers that Lou is alive, Patrick is relieved and asks her to stay away from all doors and windows. As she approaches the radio set, Lou hears a woman's voice trying to connect and discovers that there is a group of survivors living in Spring Falls. Just then, Jack comes downstairs and joins Patrick and Clara. The trio take advantage of the fact that the zombies are bewildered by the loud music and shoot in their direction. Suddenly, the generator begins to fail and the survivors realize that their ammunition is running out. As soon as the music stops, the attack's resume and Jack begins to fear for his daughter's life, as he sees no way out of the situation. Just then, Lou reveals that she heard someone on the radio and says that they need to go to Spring Falls. In order to ensure that the girl survives, Patrick decides to sacrifice his own life by luring the monsters away from the house. Before leaving, Patrick says goodbye to Lou and uses a flare to light his way while shouting to attract the predators. Meanwhile, Jack guides his daughter and Clara to the truck. During the escape, Patrick ends up being captured and falls to the ground next to a barrel of fuel. While being attacked by several bites, the man uses the flare to blow up the place and takes all the zombies with him. A few hours later, when they arrive at their destination, the trio has the opportunity to watch the sunrise and Lou is thrilled to have had the chance to appreciate this beautiful image. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.